President Joe Biden has told Ukrainian President Zelensky that the United States will provide over $1.2 billion in additional security and humanitarian assistance, reaffirming America's commitment to stand by Ukraine during the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. President Biden also announced an additional $225 million in humanitarian assistance to help the people of Ukraine by supplying drinking water, critical medical supplies, and healthcare, food, shelter, and cash for families to purchase essential items.
The president has also called on U.S. oil refiners yesterday to produce more gasoline and diesel, saying their profits have tripled during the time of war between Russia and the U.S. ExxonMobil responded, saying the company has been in regular contact with the Biden administration to update the White House on how they have been investing more than any other company to develop U.S. oil and gas supplies. This includes investments in the U.S. of more than $50 billion over the past 5 years, resulting in an almost 50% increase in our U.S. production of oil during this period. Exxon also said globally, they have invested double what they've earned over the past 5 years, $118 billion on new oil and gas supplies compared to a net income of $55 billion. We found more money for Ukraine. That's nice. That's very generous of us. Thank you, Briahna. I thank myself, and I'm sure the people caught up in a war that will not end between Ukraine and Russia.
The weird funding so that it continues.
Yeah.
Look, I obviously don't begrudge people in a humanitarian crisis getting humanitarian aid, but you cannot ignore the optics of Ukrainians getting health care and water when health care and water...
Let's send them baby formula.
Flint is still flinting. Americans still pay twice as much for their health care than any other place in the world for not having comprehensive care. People are now 2 years into the pandemic and no one's going to the dentist. no one's getting these kind of fundamental things taken care of, and we're constantly finding money for war. At the same time, Joe Biden is playing footsie and playing nice and please, baby, please, begging the oil industry not to gouge consumers under the cover of this current economic crisis, writing strongly worded letters and hoping that makes a difference.
Yeah, you can't... Begging companies not to do what is called price gouging doesn't work. We need just more favorable policies so there can be more of that supply of thing. That's the only way to solve it.
What are the more favorable policies? Because what these companies have said is that, look, they know that the sun is setting on the oil and gas industry, generally speaking, that the reserves are dwindling, that the world as a whole is moving to other forms of energy as they become more efficient and more cost effective. They don't want to. Part of why they haven't reopened some of the wells that were closed, the refineries rather, that were closed in the early days of the pandemic, is because there was no profit motive to do so. There was no profit incentive for them to do so. Even if there absolutely is demand, the margins aren't enough for them to justify doing that.
Isn't that what you want, though? Don't you want there not to be a profit incentive to horrible, polluting fossil fuel kind of production?
The whole point on the left, the whole point of the leftist argument is that there are moments where what is best for the community doesn't align with the profit incentive. And we see that in healthcare. We see that in fire departments. There's all these police departments. Why are you narrowing your eyes? There is no profit incentive for, if we don't have a free market fire department, because we know that there are houses that are not worth saving by the metric of how much it would cost to put them out or maintain a local fire department.
That would just be insurance, right? I mean, insurance can be...
No,
insurance regime can be private.
Mm-mm. Insurance and a fire company, a fire station are two different kinds of things. And there have been models in history past where they did have...
Aren't there a lot of volunteer fire departents everywhere?
No, Robby, are you really going to argue against that we should have a fire department now? Is that where we are?
I think you could probably have a voluntary free market. Many places do have voluntary fire departments.
They had that in England, and they had it other places historically, and you had to pay to put a badge on the side of your building, and if you didn't have the thing on the side of your building, the fire department would not show up and they would not put out the fire. And that's how we got entire cities burning down, because we do live in a society and there's a collective good to people actually being able to rely on certain public goods for those kinds of services. Now, if you fundamentally think that we should have a fire department, I don't know that it's worth looting that right now.
I'm not persuaded that we couldn't deploy that resource privately or have subjected to some kind of market incentive. But
the point of the matter is that if this were, for example, a state-run institution, then even if the margins were very minimal, it would be worth it for the government to go ahead and open the refineries back to make sure Americans could access gas so they could get in their cars and go to work and keep the economy going, even if some profiteer.
State-run institutions are plagued by mismanagement and terrible incentives of their own.
You can't have it both ways. Okay,
worse
Robby,
incentives.
it's all true.
So
it's all true. State-run institutions are terrible. The point is Americans can't afford their gas, so what's your plan?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, it cannot just.
We got to end the war with. We got to end the war with the Ukraine-Russia thing. We got to wind that down. And Biden's plan is to talk to Saudi Arabia, see how that goes.
Yeah. So we are sanctioning.
Stop sanctioning. We got to stop sanctioning. That's my answer.
We're going to say that Russia is terrible in doing human rights abuses and invading countries and is very, very bad. Okay, great. So now we're going to go and turn to another country who is, murdered and dismembered American-based journalists and committed every human rights abuse in the world, ban human rights organizations from their entire country, and go hat in hand and beg them for oil.
Right, we're in agreement on this. And also is impoverishing our own people a humanitarian effort. Right? We're trying to solve this crisis by taking a course of action that is causing people in America to starve and not have access to food and other things they need because it's worsening our economic conditions. And this is supposed to be viewed as humanitarian, which is a joke.
It is a joke.
Yeah.
It is a joke, but it's the joke that we call home.
I know, it's bad. So what are I don't know enough about these fancy new weapons we're sending them. They sound destructive.
The 5 rocket long range.
I saw someone, I guess I can't just share random things I saw. I forget who shared it. We're saying this is verging into technology, weapons technology that we don't even really use or understand ourselves, which sounds about right. But allegedly, that's what I saw from someone I trusted, but I don't know if that's the case.
What's fascinating, when I was going back through the footage of Biden saying that Americans were all prepared to pull up our, tighten our belts and do what we needed to do to help Ukraine, I do think there was some polling that indicated there was bipartisan support for it at the time. But in week 2, it's a very different feeling than when you're looking at months and months, years and years. Who knows how long that this crisis could go on, this conflict could go on. And it is curious that it doesn't seem to be on the table at all for the Biden administration to just
tell Zelensky it's over. It's over, and you have to. Yeah. Well, there was some reporting I saw yesterday that is, Zelensky knows and eventually needs to negotiate. And is concerned that that might end his credibility. That might be the end of his administration. So there's always bad political incentives.
Yeah,
political
incentives. I did see some reporting that for the first time there have been some critical comments from the administration about Zelensky that suggests that they are starting to try to put some distance there, perhaps because they do realize that this is an electoral non-starter for Joe Biden and he needs to start ramping down. But given how intense the kind of jingoistic fervor around being pro-Ukraine became, the Ukrainian flags is for liberals now what the American flag has become for conservatives. Mm-hmm. You can't walk down a street in DuPont without seeing a Ukrainian flag hanging from every brownstone.
And what the don't tread on flag is to me.
What the don't tread on flag is to you. I don't know quite how you ramp that back without seeming like you're completely undermining the values that you said were so important for us to get involved.
We should just admit it didn't work. We should just say, you know what? We wanted swift, decisive, targeted sanctions to see if it could screw up the Russian economy enough to make the administration back down. That was the theory. It failed. Did not work. So let's just give up. Let's just admit it didn't work, and let's stop immiserating everyone here in the U.S. In a way that will doom Democrats forever. But they're not giving up yet.
Yeah, well, we'll see
maybe
what happens.
Maybe one day. More Rising right after this. Please stay with us.